I just don't get it. I keep running up against these Soviet Aggro decks. I just don't see how these decks can win. Join me now on a couple playthroughs as I show you what I mean here on Legendary Tactics. So as I said, I keep running into this Soviet Aggro deck setup in a lot of games I'm playing of cards lately. Now, it may be the level I'm playing at, which admittedly is not that high. However, I just don't see how these decks are supposed to win. So I put together this neat American deck with some British cards in it, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's I skewed the cards a little bit more towards the higher value. There's less low value cards in there. My theory being that in general, you still want to have a mix of cards in terms of cost. However, I think that there's something to be said for basically aiming for the higher values. Now they come into play later, but realistically, in the early game, in the first few rounds, you're not going to be hit with a lot of damage to your HQ anyway. Even if they rushed into the front line, they just don't have the credits to move very far, and a lot of times your opponent's just deploying into their support line. So I don't feel I'm really missing out on a lot of momentum. And certainly when you drop these larger valued cards down, they can be sometimes pretty tough to take out. So and when faced with these Soviet Aggro decks, as they're called, this is based on a comment that one of our viewers made in a previous video of mine. I just don't see how dropping all these cards down with that do 1 damage really are able to gain any momentum. It just seems that every time you're going to be victim to cards like Awoken Giant, or heck, even any card that has any sort of stamina at all is going to be able to attack. I mean, even if you have a card with 3 health, as my artillery has there, you can take out, in general, 3 of those cards. Now, when they boost the strength and the attack strength, that part of it I get. I think that's ultimately where a lot of these cards, where they basically need to function is in that kind of a role. However, I just honestly don't see them working fast enough to secure a win. And this card was kind of interesting. It boosted up and destroyed itself, so I hadn't run across that one before. Presumably, it's good in the very, very short term, or if you can get it some extra health. But playing these reserves and getting a whole bunch of light infantry in hand, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. So the other challenge that I see with these aggro decks is when you have a lot of cheap cards in hand, it's great because you can always afford them. The downside is you fill up your support lines so quickly that there really isn't room to play a lot of these cards sometimes, especially if your opponent occupies the front line pretty strongly. There's not a lot of opportunity there to really build any momentum in terms of taking the front line and moving on to attack the HQ, especially if you're doing 1 damage per per card. You look at even that very inexpensive 2/2, which is now boosted to a 3/3. It only cost me 2 credits, or one or 2 credits to get in play, and it can take out 2 or 3 of these guys. So this is the kind of and this again maybe just the level that I'm playing at, but it just seems that to me this is not really a meta worth exploring. So especially as I start to get some of these really quite strong cards down, I'm perfectly willing to start sacrificing units, because with my artillery in the back, as you may know, I love my artillery. Look at that, that 5/6. How long will it take, unless they can boost those cards? How long will it take for that to be taken out, even if you're boosting it by one and two in that case. So that's a little more of a threat, but given the fact that we're already at the turn where I have 7 credits to spend, there are counters. You know, for example, Death from Above is one counter, or any reasonably strong blitz card can do the trick. You know, here I'm already beginning to fire on the HQ, and just kind of looking my options, but there's really not a lot of threat. You know, now that I put it down a Churchill, it's going to take a good 4 rounds before that unit is, well, it'll die before that. It'll get 2 attacks maybe if I let it. So anyway, this idea of just having all these weak cards just to me doesn't make a lot of sense. As you can probably see here, even though I haven't moved into the front line yet and beginning to take some damage on my HQ, I really honestly do not feel threatened. So here I put together a little combo, basically just to, you know, I use the artillery to take out that card. That one's always vulnerable. That Japanese card is always vulnerable to artillery. And then I weaken that frontline unit to be able to use Awoken Giant. And I've still got 4 credits left. So I may as well look to move into the front line at the moment. So I'll play that air unit and then take the front line. And I can hold that for a while, especially since my opponent now has, well, just picked up a card, only 2 cards. I have 6 cards in hand, 7 cards in hand. I don't think my opponent has very many options. So again, Echo Fighter played this deck reasonably well. I just don't think there was a lot of strength behind it. I'd love to see one of these Soviet aggro decks actually really work, because I see the potential. I see where they're going. It's just at the end of the day, I just feel that a few strong units can do a lot to defuse this. And you can see there's some attempts being made to damage me and get some units up front, and so forth. So lots of light infantry, but at the end of the day, now I'm threatening the HQ, and there's really no guard in place to protect the HQ, so I can pretty much fire at will and bring 11 potential damage. Actually, sorry, I believe actually I can take him out right now. Now, I didn't notice that at the time because I think because I kind of like the idea of repairing that Churchill, but if I'd actually added up the available firepower and with my credits, I could have won 1 turn earlier. So perhaps it wasn't the most elegant of victories, but it'll do the trick. There's not much that the Soviet player here can do. So really, it's just about ending the game. And I mean, I've got 7 cards in hand, and even if a dangerous card came, I get hit with Death from Above and make that work. So right there, that's game 1. So I won that game, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to see how fast I can win a second game. So I'm up against another Soviet aggro, and so in my first turn, I always mulligan the cards. My general rule is anything north of 3, I'm going to mulligan, because I really want to have, I don't want to wait around for 6 turns before I can play that card, and I'd like to get some lower cost cards in there if I can. My draw wasn't that useful, but now I have a one that costs 2 credit, the T-19 howitzer, so that's going to give me some artillery in hand, so that's going to be great. I'm going to be able to utilize that and start taking out some of these light infantry. So I was actually looking to see how fast I could win this game. time-wise. And I was limited, obviously, because I could do my turn very quickly, but I'm at the mercy of my opponent and their my opponent's thought process. So, so, but it did kind of raise the give me the idea of just you know, how fast can I possibly finish off my opponent here, and especially with fortification in hand. That is something that will repair any damage my HQ takes, and then some. I used to keep 2 of them in my deck. I found that one is probably fine, at least at the level, again, at the level of play that I'm at. I just don't see a lot of competition, or a lot of, I don't stress too much about the competition right now and the level of play that I'm at. So anyway, but my hand is, as we get into round 5 and I can start dropping these larger cards, things start to get really interesting. And I think my opponent made a mistake not taking, or not trying to damage my howitzer at all, but that's fine. So we've got, he's getting some strength up in the front line. It would be amazing if there were some cards that would boost these light infantry a little bit. That's a card I've seen a lot in the Russian aggro. Is that, you know, once they clear out their support line, play a card and get 4 light infantry out of nowhere. So I think if you could now mention in the comments as well, if there are any cards that these 2 decks that you're seeing on my of my opponents, if there's any cards that you see that they're missing, I'd be very curious to see what those are, because I'm sure there are cards that boost. Maybe a great card in this instance, and I'm not aware of it, but a great card would be something along the lines of add 1 firepower, or even better, 1 firepower and 1 defense per light infantry in play. That would be a pretty powerful way to boost this this particular deck. So using my my 1 card there, is saving that one up to repair my Churchill. I like scanning whenever I'm looking at my cards. You want to try and time the ones that you can make the most of. So I waited until the Churchill was depleted, and then I was able to play that card to fix. It should be a bit obvious in terms of that sort of strategy. It's not the heaviest strategy hint or tip I could give, but it is something that, see that the deployment of that P-51 allows me to damage an air unit. I'm going to wait until there's an air unit, if I can, in play, and then I'll put that one down. But I've run out of space on my support lines, so I'm going to have to clear out some opposition. And so do this. And in general, I think it's a good idea to just preserve your units that are already in play if you can. And I think that's a generally sound play. Sometimes you get tempted by letting your opponent just take out a unit that's damaged, or a weak unit, but I think that the more options you have, the better, and that is going to be represented by the cards that you have in play more than the cards that you have in hand, because at the end of the day, cards that are played, unless they're a blitz card, you're not going to be able to move or attack right away. So you want to keep as many options on the board as possible. It's just something that I feel I've figured out. So now we're into the 8th round. A lot more options open up, and I really like that artillery piece there that I just picked up. But I made sure to play the Sherman, get another couple cards. Card draw again in this game, I think, is really key. Again, just to give you options. You need to make the most of what you have at any given time, obviously. But you know, the more cards you have in hand, the more cards you have in play, that you're going to dominate. That's just the way this game would work. It's also a neat little trick. If you have a card like a Churchill, as I do with guard, with the guard capability, to shield a unit which only has 1 health. Of course, it can be taken out by card event on my opponent's part, but there's nothing they can do to remove that unit from from play. And to do 3 damage per turn on the HQ at the cost of 1 credit, that's going to wear things down fairly quickly. But you can see where the game's going already. There's just not enough strength in the support line to really make a difference. I'm playing the War Machine here because I like playing the War Machine. It's one of my favorite cards. Obviously better in the early game than the late game, but it can give you that little edge that I love. The US has that opportunity to get a little bit of edge there economically over the opponents. So here, just it doesn't really matter what I'm going to drop. It's going to be tough here with my aircraft in play. Yeah, it's just not a lot that can be done. Just sort of counting up the amount of damage I can do, and I have enough to destroy the HQ, especially now that the HQ took a bit of damage. So this is game over right here. So I was just rushing to finish this off as fast as I could, and there really wasn't much that could be done. So anyway, you see what I'm seeing, hopefully. Let me know what you think. And while you're down in the comments, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching here on Legendary Tactics.